with you till the day I die.
All right, it's Marcus checking in real quick. Please like, follow, subscribe, all the stuff. So it's a CPP tank. I think it's set up for carbureted vehicles. It has the pickup on the passenger front of the tank, which anything will tell you, if you floor it, you're going to lose fuel. It's going to slosh to the back. Under half a tank, just at half a tank even, I'd have trouble. You know, take a hard right turn, it all slosh left, stuff like that. It was just getting to the point where it was super annoying. And I was just ready to switch. So I found this pump on Speedway motors. There's a part number in the description, and it gives you everything. You know, you got your pickup, your return, positive, negative, and then a vent all in one. So those vents I had in the tank you saw, I probably don't even need after doing this, but I have them just to help me fill up faster at the tank. As you can see, it sandwiches the tank. You just got to drill a hole. There's your pump hardware. That is the pickup sock. Goes in there. And this is, this is where I'm thinking of putting it. Facing that way. Pump will sit against that. Back of the tank, so that whenever I floor it, even just regular driving, I should always get fuel, right? I would think. The little hole up front kind of helps return fuel flow out. So I'm just going to jack it up and drain the fuel. And it took longer to find a bucket than it did to fill it. And I'm just going to cap the lines that are there so I have them in case I have to go back to an in-tank pump. The lines are long enough I can swap on the road if I had to. Say a pump fails. I got the inline pump to get me by. That kind of stuff. But if you're running an in-tank pump already, this video you can kind of disregard. But if you're running an inline pump and you're having issues, this is your solution. An in-tank pump retrofit kit of any kind. Doesn't have to be Speedway or whatever, but this is the one I used. It seemed the simplest and most straightforward. Yeah, spend the money ahead of time if you haven't already and just get an in-tank pump tank set up. But if you're like me and you wanted to save a buck, well, here you are, right? Saving a few bucks, but now you had to spend a little more, and you probably would have been better off just buying the in-tank pump tank. But I spilled a little. It's all right, evaporates. Let it drain just the last little bit, and we got to work. So, oh, yeah, I didn't have a hole saw, so I had to go run to the store and get a hole saw. That's me saying, you ever think like you have all the stuff and you start the job, and of course you don't. Only trip to the store, hopefully, for this job. All right, so we marked out our hole, and that's where I'm thinking. This time lapse of me cutting into the tank. As far as I knew, there was no baffles in this tank, but you'll see once I get through, there is a baffle, and it's running front to back, not side to side like you would think, but front to back, left, separating left from right. And I was able to check for clearance under it to see if it was even, at below that half tank mark, was it moving fuel, and a piece of paper slides underneath it. So there is some movement for that fuel, but that could have been part of my below half tank, left turn, losing fuel, because it was all sloshing to the opposite side, and that baffle was stopping about half the tank worth of fuel from getting to my pickup. So there's me. I got through it, and I'm like, damn, there is a baffle. Wow, I didn't cut the baffle. Good thing I didn't cut the baffle. And asking for a print next time. I don't think manufacturers put prints up, but it'd be nice if they did. This is a burr whip. If you're in machining or anything similar, you're probably familiar. It's just a carbide cutter that you run along your edges, and it knocks down the sharp burrs. Here is the mock-up of that pickup flange or sandwich flange, whatever you want to call it. It's just a bunch of threaded holes that will keep the in-tank pump sandwiched to the top of the tank. I used some tech screws, self-starters, whatever you want to call them, just to lay it out, and then I went through with a center punch and just mark center on all those. You could easily just grab a really small drill bit and just pilot hole those holes, or like spray paint, spray it, mark the holes with that. Whatever works. There's tons of ways to do it. Here's how I did it. And we just remove that, and I'm going to check the threads, make sure those didn't booger them up too bad, and they didn't. I see a vent line right now that's pinched, so that vent line probably isn't doing a whole lot of good anyway. But so a 1/4 inch drill bit, what I was saying, is what you need for that. Just go around, start your holes. I was using a vacuum. You don't have to. You're going to vacuum the tank out anyway, so you might as well just blow right through them. But just what I was doing, try and keep as many chips as I can out of the tank. All right, all good there. And just check lineup, look if they're all gonna work. So then I got some, this is setting it up. So I cleaned up the top surface, a little bit of Scotch-Brite, sandpaper, Scotch-Brite, smooth it up a little bit. And then we're gonna set this ring up. So I got some RTV, I think I had high temp red or black, I think I had red. And then just put a few dots around it and sandwich it in there, and then set your screws and let that cure. It's a step you don't want to skip, because if you do, you might just drop that ring right in while you're installing your pump, and that would be very annoying. So carefully install, try not to drop it. I don't know if the silicone is fuel safe or not. I was hoping it was, because all I know that's fuel safe is that PTFE paste, and that probably wouldn't have held that to the top of the tank. So just starting 3, getting it all square, and then just letting that cure for, I think I let it cure for almost a whole day, like a Wednesday night, and I came back to it about Thursday. A couple holes weren't lining up, so I went ahead and grabbed some more screws to start those and let those be the guide, basically, since they were the harder ones to start. I didn't want to set myself up for too much misalignment, so that's just what I did. I was just pulling some silicone out of a couple holes just so they wouldn't plug me up later. Nothing major. Marking the holes that were looking a little misaligned just to start with those. And now we're assembling the pump. So you put that sock, pickup, whatever you want to call it, on there. And it has a built-in spacer down on the bottom that keeps it off of the actual bottom. So that's nice. And talking about some hose clamps I hadn't received yet. I was just going to use those to hold the pump onto the mount. They say use a zip tie. I wanted to use a hose clamp, but zip tie is fine. And I got my PTFE paste out, like I talked about earlier. That is actually fuel and oil safe for those fittings. There's the two lines they give you. One's a return, one's a submersible pump line for the supply. And there's your connector to the fuel pump itself. Now I was looking for a wrench or something. And oh, there it is. Found it. So put those on. I think if I could do it again, I'd put this top plate in a vise just so I could get some more leverage on it and smack it with the impact a little bit. But doing it how I did it is fine. Just put some muscle behind it so that you know that MPT thread is actually fully seated or sealed. I don't know if you can tell here, but the whole thing was just twisting on me, and it was very hard to hold the fuel pump assembly while doing it. All right, so all three fittings are in. Top two are -6AN. If you're not running an AN system already, you might want to just do that because that is a very nice system. So a 5/16 fuel hose to that AN line, just a barb fitting. Just take your measurement and cut it. I'd recommend being a little long just because of how much can actually go over that fuel pump in tank or fuel pump inlet output. I don't know how much goes over the fuel pump barb. It didn't look like that much, but it does. It can probably do like 1.5 inches of material there. So you just cut that, raise your blade. Don't cut towards yourself like I almost did. Yep, see. Oh, yeah, let's flip it around. Yeah, I think we should. Okay, yeah, we'll flip it around. Right? We've all done it, doing dumb stuff, so. I was surprised there was enough line left in case I did screw up. I could try again. So that was kind of nice of them. And we'll grab our two hose clamps that came with it. Put those together. Then you just install that onto that. Make sure your pump is still square, or at least, you know, not, yep, it's off the bottom. I was good. And just torque those down. Cool. And your return, you want to keep this slanted sharp point down and cut the top flat. Again, measure and leave a 1/4 inch to 3/4 inch gap from the bottom of the tray. That's just so that you're not blowing fuel out of the sock on the pickup. And do you need a hose clamp? I don't think it sent one, but I had one, so I put one on it. No big deal otherwise. So that's that. That's how it should look. Here goes a look at it. Now we're going to do a little wiring. Wiring is straightforward. If you've ever crimped wires before, it's the same thing. Just make sure you heat shrink them so that no fuel can ground out or make a connection. Pretty normal stuff when you're working with this kind of thing, but just make sure it's sealed up good. And then use those nylon washers they give you to isolate the top cap from the connections. So fuel cell foam, you know about that stuff? I didn't. And so then I researched it and I decided to get some to act as a baffle or mitigate some sloshing. And that's just what it was designed to do. So it worked out great. Here I am vacuuming out the tank finally after all those chips and little bits were in there. Cleaning up anywhere else just to make sure nothing else can go into the tank. Installing 2 foam bricks. Could I have done 3? Maybe. I think 2 filled up that passenger side of the tank partition just fine, leaving room, almost exactly the right amount of room for the in-tank pump that I just assembled. That tray and everything sits on the bottom. Great. All right, so there's your look inside. As you can see, there's just enough room for that pickup tray, and that should totally help some fuel from sloshing around as much when it's a little lower. Here we are dropping the tank down. Make sure you test fit it with the gasket so you know that you're not leaving it an 1/8 inch off the bottom, so you actually do get it to sit on the bottom. So just starting some of those ones that I had marked as being challenging. And I ended up having to clock it just a little more than I originally planned to, but it was all right. And then every bolt gets some NPFT or NPFT tape, PFTE silicone stuff. You can get some of that paste on there. I learned that the hard way by doing my sending unit without, and every time I fill my tank right now, my sending unit hole leaks just a little bit. Need to go back and do that paste on all those bolts and possibly the gasket surface a little bit, just because it's a really good leak when it's full. And then, like anything else with a bolt pattern, do, opposites, every other, whatever you want to do to make sure you're clamping down evenly. And then I just went around and hit it with the impact on the lowest setting. It is nice that they're Phillips instead of Allen bolts. I feel like usually you would be given Allen bolts, but I appreciate the Phillips in this case. Sweet. So that's that. I didn't film a lot of it as I wrapped it up the last couple days. It ended up taking maybe 2 weeks for this project, just between ordering parts and adapters and 90s. And I made 2 AN lines to connect to where they ended on the front of the tank, just to get them to the back of the tank. And I routed them through the frame rails, since that was a little cleaner and probably safer, up to there. And then I have my vent running just to the back of the bumper. Hasn't seen any fuel spill out of there, but I'm guessing it's working just fine. Again, I left those vents just to help me fill up faster at the gas station. If you just have one of them, you'll see that it'll kind of backflow, making the nozzle stop while you're trying to fill. But having an extra vent just allows that fuel from the fuel station to flow freely, and you can fill up your 18 gallon tank, lickety split, be back on the road. I talked a little bit about a bike that I was putting together. I don't know if you guys like little bicycles, custom builds, whatever you like. I've got a road bike that I customized into like a big kid BMX bike. Kind of fun, just a cruiser, nothing crazy. So check that out. I think it's a short or a reel. But yeah, that's it. If you are watching this, you obviously didn't get an in-tank pump right away. But if you are planning a build, get an in-tank pump tank and just bite the bullet. $100 or whatever it costs extra, just do it. Takes a lot of headache and hassle out of it. Sure, yeah, in-tank pump is complicated, but not as difficult later. An inline pump sure is easy, and if it's a drag car, maybe you can just tuck it next to the tank on the bottom sump and be done. But if you're going to drive this thing, you would probably be better off with the in-tank pump anyway. So, yep, that's it. Go ahead and like, follow, subscribe. I'm going to try and fix some audio on the next ones and see if I can get you some better audio content. But, you know, currently the only thing I've got on the agenda for this is some different wheels. And that's because they rub on the lower control arm just a little bit. But, yeah. Let me know if you got any questions or what parts I need or used and you need some advice on. Let's get your car back on the road.
With you till the day I die.